Urgent, the judge of the National Court, Jose Luis Calama, places Zapatero's daughters under investigation. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new urgent edition of Precautionary Measures, because pay attention, the judge in the Zapatero case, the judge in the Plus Ultra case, Jose Luis Calama, has just named the two daughters of Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero, Alba and Laura, as persons under investigation in the Plus Ultra case, also known as the Zapatero case, and I can tell you they are not the only ones. He has also placed Zapatero's famous secretary Gertrudis under investigation. Do you know her? She is popularly known as Gertrude. Well, both Zapatero's daughters and Gertrude are under investigation in the Plus Ultra case. And pay close attention because we have the court order fresh off the presses from the National Court Judge Jose Luis Calama, and we're going to share it with all of you. Before that, if you haven't done it yet, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel because we're on our way to 150,000 subscribers. And we're going to put the court order on the screen now so you can follow this breaking news firsthand that we're bringing to you here on Medidas Cautelares. And this is Judge Calama's court order, precisely regarding the decision we just learned about to place the daughters of the former Prime Minister under investigation, Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero. You can already see it on the screen. Here you can clearly see the court order dated June 18, 2026. It's an 11-page order, and let's get straight to the point, directly to the point. Questioning as persons under investigation. And here Judge Calama justifies placing Zapatero's daughters under investigation. It says Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa. Both are joint and several directors of the company What the Waterfab, for whose offices a search was authorized because there were indications of involvement in the events under investigation. And Judge Calama says the status of Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa as formal administrators of what? The Waterfab, whose operations appear to be linked by evidence to the network under investigation, in itself justifies, he says, their summons as persons under investigation. The investigation attributes to this company an instrumental role in channeling, concealing, or facilitating of operations relevant to the facts under investigation in the proceedings, and that mere objective finding places its administrators within the circle of people potentially affected by the charges as holders of the company's legal representation and responsible for its legal management. Being summoned as a suspect does not require a close body of evidence or full proof of the subjective element of the crime, but only the existence of reasonable indications of involvement, even if merely circumstantial or based on position, when the person holds a legal role that directly connects them to the events. In the case of administrators of allegedly instrumental companies, as is the case here, the connection derives from the very corporate structure itself. Whoever holds formal representation is by law responsible for the actions of the legal entity and for making decisions that enable or facilitate its operations. From this perspective, summoning Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa as investigated parties is the only way compatible with the constitutional guarantees of Article 24 of the Constitution. Calling them as witnesses would be incompatible with their potentially affected procedural position, as it would impose on them the duty to tell the truth, and the prohibition against withholding information, irreversibly compromising their right not to testify against themselves and not to confess guilt. I think what Judge Calama says is very interesting. That is, if now they are summoned as witnesses when there are already indications of guilt against them, then their right to defense would be affected, and that's why they are charged and summoned as suspects, says Judge Calama. Therefore, summoning Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa as suspects is not only legally possible, but necessary to preserve their fundamental rights and to guarantee the validity of the proceedings. The alternative, summoning them as witnesses, would create a risk by forcing them to testify truthfully about facts that, at a later stage, could be attributed to them as participants or those responsible due to their position as administrators of a company whose operations are objectively linked to the investigated scheme. Consequently, the decision to summon them as suspects complies with constitutional and procedural standards and is in line with the logic of protecting their rights. And it is based on the existence of reasonable grounds arising from their corporate roles, without it being necessary at this moment to make a definitive judgment about their personal involvement in the events. As I told you, they are not the only ones. Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa, daughters of Zapatero, are also charged in the Plus Ultra case or Zapatero case, whichever you prefer to call it. Also, Judge Calama mentions in this case the statement of Gertrudis Alcázar Jiménez, Zapatero's secretary. The evidence of her direct involvement in the events was extensively presented in the order of May 18, 2026, which authorized the search of the office where she works, justifying her summons to the proceedings as a suspect. This is what Judge Calama says. They had also requested then another series of investigative measures. But the most important thing is what he decides regarding Zapatero's daughters and Zapatero's secretary Gertrudis, also popularly known as Gertru. And let's go to the operative part. Judge Calama says that it is agreed to inform Gertrudis of the existence of these proceedings. Alcázar Moreno, Alba Rodriguez Espinosa, and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa, who are Zapatero's daughters, so that they can appear in the proceedings as suspects and become aware of what has been done, properly assisted by a lawyer, or request the appointment of a public defender and exercise their right to defense. To this end, notify this resolution attaching the UDEF reports without prejudice to their access to all the proceedings once they appear in due form. In a separate resolution, the date and time for their statement as suspects will be set. That is, we still do not know the date or the time. Judge Calama also says that at this stage of the proceedings, the requested investigative measures are not granted, both by the legal representation of the Unified Popular Prosecution Parties and by the legal representation of the suspect José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, as referenced in the factual background of this resolution. The request for asset-related precautionary measures by the legal representation of the Unified Popular Prosecution Parties is also denied. That is, both Zapatero's defense and the popular accusations had requested investigative steps. And at this stage of the proceedings, Judge Calama says he rejects it. Against this decision, appeals for reconsideration may be filed with this court within 3 days, and appeals may be filed within 5 days. This is so ordered, decreed, and signed by the magistrate of the National Court, José Luis Calama Techera. And this is the very latest breaking news. The judge of the National Court, José Luis Calama, has placed under formal investigation the daughters of the former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, namely Alba and Laura Rodriguez Espinosa, for their alleged involvement in the criminal acts being investigated in the Plus Ultra case through their company, What the Fab. The date and time for their summons as suspects have not yet been set. Along with Zapatero's daughters, none other than Zapatero's secretary Gertrudis will also be joining them, as she is also under investigation in this case. All three will have to appear for questioning as suspects before the judge of the National Court, José Luis Calama. This is the breaking news we have just reported on Medidas Cautelares. Current events are on fire, and the corruption of the Socialist Party under Sanchismo doesn't stop, not even for a moment in Spain. And that's what precautionary measures is here for, to be able to report it. That's all for this edition of precautionary measures. I hope you like this breaking news. I know you were a bit disappointed after yesterday when Zapatero got away without any precautionary measures, but his daughters, as was expected, were going to be placed under investigation. And they have already been charged along with Zapatero's secretary, Gertrudis. Join precautionary measures for under €3 a month as chosen members, or under €7 as supreme members. You can also make contributions via Bizum at 627,556,275,563,76,275,563,275,563,70. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being there every day. And thank you for your comments and opinions, which you know I take very much into account. I read all the ones I have time for, and I even reply to some of them as well, if I have time and if this corruption that never stops in Spain lets me. You know, you can share the video and share your thoughts on the future. What do you think will happen with Zapatero? Is he going to move forward or not? Is he going to get away with it? Leave me your opinions. The most important thing, as I always tell you, is that this information reaches everyone because information is power. See you soon.